It's just pain, all right? Let it rinse through you.
Can I be with just the reality of what is?
I got a Buddhist over here, I got a Christian over here. And you can create a self-referential moral system that provides meaning and purpose.
It's about the way, and which means keep going.
Now, there is a bumper sticker I like. Now that I've given up hope, I feel much better.
So it's not what else do I need to do, it's what other awareness do I need to recover.
Sometimes you can't read the label from inside the bottle. The answer to the meaning, the big meaning of life?
The meaning of my life.
I think the meaning of my life is
See it? Okay.
Make an adjustment. I love hearing you guys talk about this stuff. It's great. It's just different. It's just different from, wonderful concepts that you're putting out there. I really like
we're
it.
just in different sections of the same choir.
Yeah. Exactly. It is the same choir, but it's
Absolutely.
it's wonderful to hear the other sections. So Nick asks, is meaning just a concept? And that's its own answer. Yes, it is just a concept. I mean, our minds are constantly generating concepts. And from my Zen background, I know that concepts are simply secretions of our mental functioning, and that Zen always contrasts a concept and just experience. So when we think about meaning, we have to remember that it's something that each of us imagines. We know what it is and has a definition for. If we want to think about that concept, what does it correspond to? What would meaning look like when the rubber meets the road? Is it what you get up and do every day? Is it how you feel about it when you're done with an activity? So each of us has our own idea of what meaning we're searching for.
And Bob, isn't it true that, yes, it's a concept and it's something we imagine, that doesn't mean it's imaginary. In other words, life is a story we tell ourselves, so pick your story carefully. So how we think about how we're going to aim our attention into the experience of just this has a real effect on one's experience of life. So coming up with your meaning idea can really affect your meaning experience.
Absolutely. But I want to push back and say life is not just a story we tell ourselves. It is the experience. It's the living into each moment, right?
Yes.
It's, in the Zen teaching, it's how do you know whether the water is warm or cold? You have to experience it. You can't just tell someone else.
Right. You gotta be there.
You got to be there. You got to live it.
Yeah. Lauren wants to know, what are some easy ways you can design meaning right here, right now? Okay, I'll give you two of different types. One, you can do the compass and you can do coherency sightings. What do I mean by that? So for many people, experiencing meaning goes up when who I am, what I believe, and what I'm doing appear to be in alignment. We call that coherency. Well, if you want to experience coherency, you have to articulate what those three things are well enough to be able to catch yourself in the act of being coherent. So we have an exercise called the compass, where you write down what's my life view, my big ideas, my work view, how I think about how I spend my time, and what's my current story. Well, those three things in your hands, 3 half pages, now you can identify, am I living coherently today? It was like, I'm sitting with Bob Waldinger and Bill Burnett, and we're all talking about how to live a meaningful life and what the good life is really all about. That's a really coherent thing for me to be doing. So thing one you can do pretty quickly is identify what your compass is, and then catch yourself in the act of being in alignment with who you really are. And that's going to feel more meaningful. That's kind of like the big purpose orientation to life kind of thing you could do quickly. And the other thing is back to, you have to live it. So something you could do very quickly is just change your vowel from O to E. So you look at your to-do list, all the stuff I got to get done today. And rather than I got to get it done, I get to do it. So I move from make it be over as a transaction to make it be wonderful as a participant, just by going from got to get to. And you can do that fast.
And get to versus got to has a lot to do with our visceral experience of an activity, because some activities just drain all the life out of me, right? They're got tos.
Right.
And then they're activities that I would do if nobody was looking.
Yeah.
And that's the get to.
Yeah.
And so I think my sense is, how do people find ways to point themselves toward the things that make them feel like, oh my gosh, I get to do this today, right? And that's an energetic determination where you check inside and you say, yeah, I love this. No, I hate that.
Right.
So Alexandra wants to know, how do you sort of get rid of all the noise that's around you when you're trying to make important life decisions? Is that pretty much it? And boy, we live in a really noisy world right now. You've got, social media and all of the stuff that comes at you from all these different channels, and they're trying to grab your attention and distract you and things. And it is difficult to kind of be quiet and listen to your own voice. We have an exercise where people come up with 3 different plans for their lives, and sometimes they don't like any of them. And I ask why, and they go, well, this is what my mom wants me to do. This is what my friends tell me I'm supposed to do. This is what everybody else is doing on social media. So I think our idea for how do you quiet that noise down and get focused on things that matter to you has to do with a couple of ideas. One, we call the scandal of particularity, that the infinite can only be experienced in the moment, and that you find ways of designing moments where your attention is completely consumed on the task that you're doing. What else, Dave? What would we do for quieting down and focusing in?
Well, I think just recognizing that the fact that there are these different voices. Martin Seligman, the inventor of positive psychology, his original research field was internal disputation. We all have these arguments with ourselves and all these voices in our head. And a competency you want to develop is recognizing which voice is which and making sure the right one wins the argument. The old, Native American idea that, everyone's a wolf pack, be sure you feed the right wolf. And so I think the key thing in being able to parse out and discern amongst the voices, first and foremost, just recognize who's speaking. Oh, that's mom. Oh, that's me. Oh, that's society. So if you can at least identify who's speaking, then you can settle down on what is it I have to say about my life.
Do you have some simple tricks for getting rid of the noise?
Yeah, another one is to kind of bring mortality into it. Like, David Brooks talks about resume values and eulogy values, right? And this idea of, like, when I'm gone, or when they're celebrating me at my 100th birthday party, am I going to want to be celebrated for this thing that I'm thinking of doing, or that other thing? And sometimes that kind of longer term perspective of how much am I going to look back and value that I did this can be helpful when you think about the various pressures that we have in our lives to jump through different hoops.
Okay, so it's find a way to concentrate on a moment and build a moment of awareness that's real. Identify the voices in your head to make sure you know whose advice you're taking.
Yeah.
And take a longer perspective of thinking about, when people are eulogizing me, are they going to talk about, well, he got his to-do list done all the time and his budgets were good and his PowerPoints were excellent, work, or will they talk about the value of my life, the value of the things that I created? So I think that's kind of 3 different ways of approaching the problem of it's a noisy society right now.
So Sam's asking, how can I find meaning and happiness if my life is full of pain? And, Sam is pointing to real suffering. I mean, that's the truth of life, that there is suffering. Life isn't full of the same pain every moment. Pain comes and goes, it morphs and changes. So one of the things to begin with is simply watching the pain and watching how it changes, when it comes, when it goes, how you react to it. So the first is to become intimate with that pain, because our instinct is to keep turning away from it. So I sit on a meditation cushion and my ankle starts to hurt and I want to go, no, 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 and I'm going to concentrate on something else. And the teaching is face toward it, really know it. And then you will find that it never stays the same, that it comes and goes. And then within that, there are undoubtedly going to be spaces where you can find moments of ease, moments of satisfaction. And so a lot of it is facing toward the very thing that your gut is saying, no, 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 I got to turn away from this.
It's hard to know exactly what pain we're talking about here, but physical pain, that comes and goes. I think the times when I've really been in pain mentally, when I'm really stuck, I'm in a box, I don't know what to do, and I'm really hurting. Someone has hurt me, or something has happened. When my parents died, for instance, that's a form of pain. I think it sounds glib to just say, change your mind, but pain is, you can say, it comes and it goes, and holding on to the pain just makes it worse. So, processing the death of my father when he died, but I was able to be there, and do whatever I could do to be with that, and then figuring out how that felt over time. And I think it's also David Brooks who said, it's Joe Biden. There'll come a point in time, because he was talking about the death of his son. There'll come a point in time after the pain subsides a bit, when you'll be able to enjoy, the feeling of what my father meant to me, what his son meant to him. So I think depending on, if it's emotional pain, psychological pain, physical pain, all things pass, and having a little bit of a perspective on that, and it's not enjoying the pain, but being present with it is probably the best thing you can do.
I want to triple down on what you guys are saying, because I'm actually going to suggest that we befriend the pain. And I'm not trying to be melodramatic, but this is a really important moment in my own life. So I lost my dear wife to cancer 5 years ago, but love has been kind to me. I'm about to get married again. But going through that was really an intense experience, and we learned a lot. And what turned out to be one of the most important aphorisms that guided our marriage was learned through this cancer. So my wife Claudia is going in for yet another procedure. And the nurse is saying, well, now when we inject this radio-opaque dye for this imaging process, you might feel a little bit of warmth. And at this point, Claudia had gotten very tired of what she calls medical euphemisms. And she was an old salesperson and pretty kick-ass. And so she said, oh, you mean a little warmth like where you take a can of kerosene, pour it down my throat, light it so my body goes on fucking fire, And the nurse goes, oh, you've had the procedure before. She goes, yes, I've had this procedure before, and I'm tired of your medical euphemisms. Then the nurse goes all hard on her. She says, oh, okay, honey, so here's the deal. It's just pain, all right? Let it rinse through you, and it'll be over. Or you can resist it, and it feels worse longer. It's up to you. I get paid the same either way. Now, that's this incredibly harsh thing. But it was Claudia would have said that was the most helpful piece of advice she ever received in her entire life. And there are two critical words in that sentence. It's just pain, let it rinse through you. And it's just pain. And then rinse through you. And then I used that to process the grief of losing her for a year. And what I really learned, this is where I think the Buddhist idea that all pain is illusion, well, I think what he really means is that the secondary pain is illusion. So here comes a wave of, in her case, physical pain from an imaging procedure. Or for me, I'm picking up a head of iceberg lettuce in Safeway, and a sneaker wave of grief hits me, and I suddenly notice I'm on my knees in Safeway wailing, which is inconvenient and a little embarrassing, And so then there's, it hurts so bad. And then there's, oh no, it hurts so bad. That's the voluntary pain. No, I don't want to be in pain. You talked about resistance. It's just coming. That's the let it rinse through you. Open up, go, bring it. and it comes through more quickly, and then you can move on. And frankly, sometimes you just want to get through the pain, and sometimes the pain has a gift. There's a lesson, there's an insight. So I was spend all day talking about pain, but pain's a big part of the life, and befriending it is huge.
Absolutely. There's another slant on this that I'll add, which is that, in Buddhism, the first noble truth is life is suffering. But actually, many people say that's not the right translation of the original Pali word, that it is life is unsatisfactory. And what that emphasizes, it's not the physical pain and the gut-wrenching
Yes,
grief
yeah.
that you're talking about,
Yes.
but it's what a lot of our pain is, which is optional. And it is
Longing for more, yeah.
because of the judging mind. The mind says, I want this and I don't want that. And so we're always saying, that's unsatisfactory for me. And if we think of it that way, often we can ask ourselves, is this actual pain and suffering, or is this something that my mind has categorized as, I don't like this?
The gap between what is and what I had in mind.
Exactly. And so can I be with just the reality of what is? That's
Right.
what we keep talking about. All three of us are coming back to that.
Yeah. I've got a little tiny devotional book sitting in my backpack right over there. The title of which is Just This.
Just this. Absolutely.
Just this.
Yep.
Okay, so Tony's question is, can you find meaning without faith? And luckily, he asked the atheists in the group. I got a Buddhist over here, I got a Christian over here, and I'm the existential atheist.
Buddhists or atheists?
Well, actually, yes, they are. There is no God in Buddhism. Absolutely, I believe that you can find meaning, purpose, moral values. I don't believe that you require those to be referenced to some higher or external source. I think that the sense of the way I think of it, and I have this mantra that I say every morning when I wake up. I say, I live in the best of all possible worlds. As an existential atheist, there is no other world, so this is the best of all possible worlds. And everything I do today, I choose to do, which gives me the agency to get up and get things done in the morning. So I believe that for people who do have a faith or believe in some transcendent reality that anchors morality, values, ethics, and everything for them, that's fine. But I don't think it's necessary, because I think you can generate that in an internal system, and we live in words, we live in thoughts and in actions in the world, and you can create a self-referential moral system that provides meaning and purpose without an external reference. I do it. Lots of people do it. I think even if you think about Buddhism and other things, there's a famous, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him, because the only Buddha is the Buddha in here, right? I don't mean to quote Buddhism in front of a Zen master.
No, that's the perfect. You just gave a great Buddhist teaching.
That's
right
it. So I absolutely believe it, because I do it, and I know people who I consider far more moral and coherent than some of the folks that talk about religion, but don't actually practice it the way it was probably invented. So yeah, I think you can do it. Would you agree? Would you disagree?
No. So years ago, late at night, in an Indian restaurant in East London, we're having this conversation. We've been having this conversation for a long time, and I posit an approach to this, which I think is kind of important that you finally adopted, which is, hey, Bill, at the end of the day, I mean, your atheism and my theism, we're really much more similar than we appear, because you're a mystery appreciating atheist. You're not a materialist, determinist, nihilist. That's a really tough category to be in, by the way. But you're a mystery appreciating, atheist, and you see numinosity and you see mystery all the time, and you appreciate it and you enjoy it. So I said, when you hit mystery, you round down to, I just don't know yet. When I hit mystery, I round up to God and transcendency. And it's a big difference, but it's really all about the mystery.
And the other thing we want to do is take that word faith and look at it a bit, because demystify it, because in Buddhism, okay, there is no God, there's no deity, or at least Buddhists say we don't know, we can't possibly know. But the pillars of Zen, the three pillars of Zen, are faith, doubt, and determination. So then faith in what? So it's not in a supreme being, but it is in faith in persisting in the process of development, in being with life as it is again and again each moment. And the reason why you need the reason why you need the faith is because it is hard. There are times when you just want to give up, when you're on your knees in the Safeway saying, I got nothing, right? And so what Buddhism talks about is the need for faith in carrying on, right? And that if we carry on, there will be growth, there will be development.
And we're largely on this. So there's this great line in the New Testament, and faith leads to hope, and hope brings about perseverance. So the whole point is, it's called the way. It's actually, the early Christians weren't called Christians; they were called followers in the way. Our second chapter is, the designer's way. It's about the way, and which means keep going.
Yeah. Now there is a bumper sticker I like. Now that I've given up hope, I feel much better.
That's okay. We can have another conversation about the distinction between hope and expectation.
So Doma asks, what's more important? Is it the intention or the results of our intention? And again, I'm going to go back to my Buddhist background, because Buddhism reminds us that we can't control the results of our action. There are always unintended consequences. There are always new things thrown into the mix that we don't expect. So what Buddhism teaches is that what we can control is our intentions. What we can shape and set is our intentions. And then that gives us the best chance of having outcomes that feel meaningful, that feel helpful, that feel like they improve the world, which is the basic goal of the Buddhist life. So the idea is, can't control outcomes, but let's set the intentions carefully to see if we can have the best outcomes possible.
They both way matter. I mean, in our 5 mindsets in our new book, the third one is fully engaged, calmly detached. And it's all about the other 8 billion people on the planet may go off script when you're not looking. It's very hard to control outcomes, but you can control your activity and your participation. So this shift from I'm a producer to I'm a participant. I care about the product. I'm going to try real hard. I want the outcome to work if at all possible. I'm going to do my part. But I really humbly recognize I am not in control of the universe. And so I let go. I detach from the outcome, which actually allows me to be even freer in my execution of my attempt to do my intention. Because if I'm just doing my participation, all my energy is going into what I'm doing, not being preoccupied with the outcome. Is it going to work? Will they like it? Will they buy the book? And that gets in the way. Andrea wants to know, how can true acceptance be achieved? Gosh, I don't know. When does my acceptance hit true acceptance? That feels like an asymptote to me. So I think, I'll just call it acceptance. In our book, we talk about radical acceptance, meaning like really accepting. I think how it's achieved is over and over. I think the key thing I should say, it's achieved over and over and over. And I'm going to shoot for it today, and I'm coming back tomorrow.
It's a practice.
It's a practice. And probably a really important way to achieve acceptance is to have people around you who can remind you of the truth. So this guy will sneak up behind, one of his favorite things to do, and he's done this many times, I love it. He walks up behind me and he taps me on the shoulder, and he whispers in my ear, Dave, I think we're having an acceptance problem again. Which is like, one time I walked into the classroom And we randomly put kids in small groups. And we were having actually a visiting administrator, the dean of freshmen, who happens to be a woman of color. And one of the small groups, there were 8 black kids in this class, and 6 of them were in one small group. And she walks up to me and says, "So apparently diversity is not an issue in this group." And we're like, so it's a completely random outcome. We had all the black kids in the corner. Like, this is a complete, like, what do we do? And like, we have an acceptance problem. Our system didn't work. We just have to deal with it. So this thing about acceptance is just a practice that you yourself and hopefully people around you can help you into. Here's the reality you're in today. What are we going to do with that?
Right. The other thing is that again, I keep coming back to Zen because the questions are so evocative. Zen talks about life being a series of 10,000 mistakes, that we should just expect that things are going to go wrong. People are going to go off script, that the randomization is going to end up putting way too many people of one color in one group, right? And that the 10,000 mistakes are the fabric of life. And that rather than lamenting that, just being with it, going with it, saying, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
Almost every time I find myself, upset, pissed off, whatever it is, aggravated, I stop and I go, well, okay, what am I not accepting here? Like, is there something that's actually wrong that I need to fix? Or is this just the difference between the way things are and the way I want them to be?
Yeah.
And the way I want them to be is the thing that's causing my frustration, my anxiety, whatever it is.
And that gets us back to the optional suffering. That's a clear example.
That's the elective suffering.
And then as soon as I go, wait a minute, why don't I just accept things the way they are and see what we can build from here? I'll give you a very tangible example. We started up a class that Stanford started 3 weeks ago. We started teaching the designing the professional class, which is designing your life for the MBAs and the graduate students. Happened to be assigned a very small conference room, and we get to the conference room, and I'm looking at the thing. I think I got 30 students coming. This little can fit 30, but it's not going to work, and the tables and blah blah blah. And one of my associates says, "Hey, what if we just did the whole class without tables?" My first reaction was, "That won't work.
We always use tables.
We always use tables. They got to write on tables, or they have worksheets and things."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, why don't we try it?" And I just stepped back and I thought, well, first of all, this is a smart guy, and it's not. I'm acting like I'm in charge here. This is really a collaboration, and I don't know how it's going to work with tables. Anyway, we took the tables out of the room, set up spaces, and I've never had a better class. Never had a better starting class. Without the table, so they're sitting in groups of 5 or 6. Without the table in the middle,
There's no separation.
there's no separation. It's more like this kind of, and all of a sudden the conversations were amazing. And all I had to do was just back off my assumption that tables were necessary and that this guy was somehow usurping my authority as the instructor. I don't know. It was all this stuff was going on in my head. And when I finally just let it go, and I let it go, and in the back of my head I was thinking, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. So all that, unnecessary suffering and anxiety and worry just dissipated when the actual event occurred, and I could just be available for what the students were experiencing. And we've never had, in class 3, these kids are all best friends now. It's amazing.
Well,
so
and one of the things that sometimes when I'm in those situations and I feel like I don't know if I can accept this or not, I'll ask myself, well, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly. What's the worst that can happen?
And like you realize, okay, well, maybe the class won't go as well. That might be the worst that could happen, right?
Somebody will be trying to write
on a piece of paper, and they'll
clipboards next week.
Yeah. But other than that, you realize nobody's going to die, nothing tragic is going to happen, and then sometimes that lets me let go of my, tight holding on to the way it's always been done.
So Grace wants to know, who works with overachievers who are often overthinkers, how do you actually know what experiencing meaning feels like when you're so thought-oriented or outcome-oriented. So Grace, I think the question really has the answer embedded in it. When you're overthinking and you're a high achiever, it's all about the outcome. It's all about impact. I mean, our experience, one of the reasons we recently wrote this book is we kept hearing from people, it's not working, I'm not fulfilled, I thought it'd be more meaningful. And we said, well, what do you mean? What were you after? And overwhelmingly they describe, I'm trying to make a difference in the world. I'm trying to have an impact. I'm trying to have what I do matter. I'm trying for it to scale. So it's very, very production oriented. I mean, like 95% of people we've been talking to, the only valid form of meaning making that they are looking for is outcomes. And so the problem with that is, of course, the outcome happens at the end. And so you didn't experience meaning during the experience of trying to create it, and you're just observing it. So now it's all an idea. And so what you have to recognize is we're here to live. And so what I want to participate purposefully toward outcomes that matter. That's fine. And if it works better and the impact occurs, I'm happy to celebrate that. But if I don't put all my eggs in that outcome basket, then I come back to, is what I'm doing now in alignment with what I care about? Am I enjoying the experience of collaborating with these people? I'm getting to know Bob Waldinger in person a little bit. Am I there for the presence of it? So two things occur when you're actually feeling meaning making. First of all, you're in the moment. You have to be present. And secondly, it actually is an embodied experience. My friend here, Bill, will regularly say, you're not a brain on a transport system. You are an embodied intelligence called a person. So I'm actually going to feel in my body. I'm going to have a physiological sense of peacefulness. I'm going to feel a sense of rootedness. I'm going to be aware of the other people I'm with a little bit. I'm not all in my head. So meaning making occurs in the moment. And if I'm in the moment, I want to be in the moment as an embodied person, not just an idea.
I would love to riff on that a little bit, because
away.
There's been some psychology research, which I bet you guys know, about extrinsic motivators versus intrinsic motivators. So extrinsic motivators are, the shiny badges of achievement that we all go after. I made this difference in the world, right? And the intrinsic motivators are, I love doing this. I just care about this activity.
I can't not do this.
Right. And one of the things they find is that when we respond constantly to extrinsic motivators, we lose touch with our intrinsic motivators. We lose touch with those signals, those embodied signals of, this lights me up, this energizes me, this makes me feel warm inside, that we lose that. And so one of the problems with being one of those high achievers who responds to those external motivators is that we lose touch with an element of our soul. If
We've numbed
to
ourselves.
Get spiritual, we get numbed to that, and we can re-engage that. We can start listening again to those internal signals.
Yeah, being one of these high achieving, highly motivated people in recovery, I will say.
Me too. Me too.
I'll bet you the folks we're talking about and talking to actually have had embodied moments of feeling meaning or feeling some sense of accomplishment or success that wasn't just the external badge. It was a sense of, I did a good thing there, or I really helped that person there. Or
at least I felt really alive.
My spouse and I really, really had this grounded conversation that one time. So, oftentimes in office hours, students will come in and they'll describe an experience, and I'll say, I think you know the answer. And they'll say, no, I don't. I say, well, tell me about how it feels.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can get to how something felt for them, they do have sort of an embodied wisdom. They have a sense of that was right or wrong, or that felt good or it felt bad. It felt good or felt bad. Normally I say, tell me how it felt, and they'll give me an explanation. I'll say, no, that's what happened.
Yeah.
How did you feel? And we're not that practiced at getting into our feelings. Men worse than women by research. So it takes a little bit of time to kind of get there. Like, how did it feel? And then unpack that, and below that, how did that feel? And below that, how did that feel? But people have had that experience. And they might just need to be reminded of it in order to identify, oh yeah, I have felt something that was meaningful or important and felt it in my body. And if you can get them to recall that, and then to notice, hey, I'm only responding to the extrinsic motivators, and I'm not listening to any of the intrinsic motivators. Curiosity is an intrinsic motivation. Humans are curious just for the joy of being curious and discovering things, right? People, we had in the second book, the autonomy, relatedness, and competence, or autonomy, mastery, and purpose, are intrinsic motivators. People want to get better for the goal of just getting better, not to get the badge. They want to be helpful. So if they can listen to their intrinsic motivation and find a place where they felt something, even if it was a little something, they can build off of that and retrain that part of their awareness.
I think this one's really important. Because if we have all these overachievers, if that's a correct observation, we have all these impact, single motivated people, they are attenuating their capacity to recognize the experience of being alive, the experience of being in the moment. So so it's not what else do I need to do, it's what other awareness do I need to recover. Let me give you a very real illustration from my own life. Okay, so I lost my beloved wife to Claudia 5 years ago. And so about a year after that, I think, well, I'm not dead. We might give this another try, So I inadvertently fall for this woman who's one of my students. So I had to do a Title IX filing. But if you're 69 and she's 68, it's okay. It's okay. It turns out, Phil Pizzo approved it. And so I'm getting pretty attracted to this woman named Frisch, who I'm now going to marry, by the way. This is 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And at one point I tell her, well, there's something going on here. Are we just going to give this a try? What do you think? She said, no. You're not ready. You're still in grief. You need to date other women. I don't trust you yet. And I went, oh, okay. She said, you need to put that program in place. I'd already put together a dating program, which I hadn't implemented because I thought I'd just stick with her. She said, go do that dating program because I want to make sure that you've really fleshed this thing out. Okay, off I go. So I go off and I start dating about 10 women. And then there were really only 3 at the top of the list. And I'm kind of thinking, what do I do now? I'm sort of stuck. So I went to a woman actually called a spiritual director. This is sort of a spiritual counselor who I'd known for 30 years. And I said, Mary Ruth, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. She said, okay, well, tell me about these. She says, well, what's going on? I tell her the story. She goes, well, who are the top 3? Well, it's Frisch, Carla, and Janet. She goes, okay, here's what I want you to do. Talk about Carla. Talk about Carla. She goes, well, Carla's, no. And she goes, stop. Talk about Janet. I go, oh, well, Janet, no. She goes, stop. She goes, talk about Frisch. I go, well, so Frisch, no. She goes, stop. And then she goes, why are we here? I go, I told you why we're here. I'm trying to discern which of the, she goes, Dave, are you really this stupid? I said, what do you mean? She says, and here's what she said. And she was the 3rd person to say it, but the first person I heard it from. When you talk about Frisch, you are entirely different. She didn't say you talk differently about her. She said, when you talk about her, this happens every time. You're totally different. And I'd actually been resisting it because I was actually scared of how in love with her I was. I still am. So she pointed out, you're not picking up your own signal. I was changed just thinking about this woman, but I had to be able to tap into it. And as soon as I did, it was game over. So learn how to hear from yourself.
Yeah, and I'll say this is one of the most self-aware guys I know. And sometimes you can't read the label from inside the bottle.
Exactly.
You need somebody else to say,
You need some help.
What do you,
Exactly.
what do you, here's what I noticed. What the hell is wrong with you?
Right.
Yeah.
This
Right.
is so obvious. What's wrong with you?
Third person.
We all need it. We all need it, right? We all need that.
Absolutely.
We often
network.
say you can't hear yourself by yourself.
Yeah. No, that's really important, that often we cannot see aspects of ourselves that other people can see. So asking people, finding the trusted people in your life and saying, let me run this by you. How does this sound to you? It's exactly what you did with your spiritual advisor.
Yeah.
is something you want to have, and it would be great to find those kinds of people. If you don't have anybody like that, there may be a friend or a family member,
Or a counselor or a therapist or somebody
a counselor or
who's
therapist.
trained at understanding that we can't see ourselves sometimes.
Yeah.
Just a sincere friend who actually cares about you. I mean, we've sort of lost the art of good friendship. A lot of what we rent now in counselors, good friends can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
The answer to the meaning of my life, no. The meaning in my life, I find everywhere. I find lots of places where I can find meaning in my life. The big meaning of life, I spend a lot of time on, and maybe, but before I die, I might have something figured out. But no, meaning of life, not a design question.
Yeah, I think the meaning of my life is to live as fully into the invitation that life, and in my case, I think God is providing me as best I can discern at that moment, and continue to do that day by day. That's working for me fine.
Yeah. I'm fairly aligned with that in terms of living as fully as I can, and being open to as many things that life brings as I can. And Zen has helped me set an intention. So it's not the meaning of my life, it's certainly not an outcome, but the intention, the North Star, is to be of use and to relieve suffering where I can in the world. That includes in me, but very much in the world. And so when I'm faced with choices, like a choice to do this or to do that, the North Star can help me. Is this going to add to suffering in the world or in my life, or is it going to ease suffering? And that often keeps me on a path that feels good to me right now.